Alright, in this video I'm showing how to build a playlist for a Sunday service in ProPresenter. So I'm going to start by pulling up the service plan, which I've already done here for 1/27, working with January 27th, and I move it off to the side where I can still see the songs, and I open ProPresenter and I kind of move that off to the side so I can see and work in both places for right now. The first thing I'm going to do is add a new playlist. I'm going to title it with the date 1/27/19, and I want to drag it to the top of the playlist list because in Ableton Ableton's going to reference playlist number 1 and then playlist items and then slide numbers and stuff. So when Ableton tells ProPresenter I want to reference playlist number 1, that means the top playlist. So this always has to be at the top. And the next thing I'm going to do is create headers for every element of the service. And I'm actually going to start at the end. And I'll explain why in a second. So the first thing, or I guess the last thing in the service, is going to be end of service. The next thing before that is going to be celebrations. Before that is song 4. Oh boy, song 4. Before that is the sermon. Before that is songs 2 and 3. I don't need a separate header for those because there's nothing between those two. And then we'll just call the welcome, baptisms, the same header, and then song 1. And before that. And this is hopefully obvious why I'm going in reverse order, because every time I add a new header, whatever I have selected, it's going to put a header above that. And so going in reverse order saves me the extra work of having to add a header and then drag it to where I want it, and then add a new one and then drag it above, to where I want it, or below, I guess. Anyway, pre-service is the final header that I'll add. Great. So now I've got all, oh, you know what? I don't have everything because I don't know the song names yet. But what I'll do is now go in order, pre-service, loop. And what I had done, I guess, before I started this video was to disable this slide. And I did that to remind myself I don't have the pre-service loop video for January 27th yet. This is from January 20th. So I want to disable this and remind myself to come back and update this video with the current pre-service loop, which I'll get later this week. So then we do the countdown video. That's the next thing. Just drop that in. Looks good. Song 1 is going to be Only Wanna Sing. Drop that in. And I need to, while I'm here, check the arrangement. Make sure, yep, it's the default arrangement. If it's set to master, that's going to be incorrect. We want default arrangement. And then the welcome. Okay, cool. And I've done something similar to the pre-service loop idea by disabling that slide. I've disabled all of these slides as well to remind myself I don't have the actual welcome slides for 1/27. They're usually always the same, these three, but the call out is different, and I'll need to update that before Sunday. So I wait, or I guess until I get the welcome and the celebrations document from Melissa. I want to keep these disabled, and then once I get that, I'll update them and re-enable them. Song 2 is Tremble, so I'll drop that in, check the arrangement, perfect. Song 3 is Worthy. Oops. Oh, and I need to check the arrangement here. Default, perfect. And then the sermon. And I want to do a placeholder for the sermon. The sermon document that I get every week is a personalized title. So it'll say like Power of a Focused Life number 4, I think, this week. And so when I import that into ProPresenter, that won't be just a generic sermon title. So what I can do is create a placeholder sermon document and then have a few things in here ready to just drag into my actual sermon document, which I'll get later this week with the sermon slides. So that's what I've done here. No need to disable these because I'm not going to change them. This is just a placeholder document versus this is the actual welcome document we'll use, and I do need to change some things, so I've set myself that reminder by disabling the slides. Song 4 is going to be Grateful. Perfect. Check the arrangement. Default. Excellent. Celebrations. And here, this is the celebrations document from last week, but I'd prefer to use this placeholder document. And the reason is I can add MIDI notes to this slide and then import the celebrations document, which is not a personalized, it's not going to have a personalized title, it's just going to say celebrations. So when I import that into ProPresenter, often what happens is this new document that I'm going to get is going to replace the current document that I have in here, and if I make changes to this, they'll be lost, and I'll have to re-add those when I add the Sunday content for 127, that document. So I would rather have the placeholder here and then import the celebrations document and then change this out in the playlist with the new document. It just keeps things simpler and better organized in my experience to do it that way. So I use placeholders for the sermon, for the celebrations. I don't use a placeholder usually for the welcome, just because the only thing that's really going to change here is the call out, and that's simple enough to remember and not get tangled up with. So the end of service now is the last document I need to add, and that's titled Ableton Cue to End of Service. And I can drag this down to there. And this again has been disabled just to remind myself I don't have the pre-service, post-service loop that we need for 127 yet. I'll have to add that and then I can re-enable that slide. So that is the first step, creating the playlist. Now what I want to do is go through and update the backgrounds. And I get these backgrounds from Micah. He helps pick out the motion background from Church Motion Graphics that we want to use, and that saves me a step. So this is the background from the last time we did the song, which may have been months ago. I'm going to pull up the email that I got from Micah with screenshots, and then I also have this folder here, January 19 backgrounds, in my video image bin. And I'm going to look for something that matches. So this one might be this. I think it is. Let's just double check. Yes, it's got to be it. So that's number 4. That's cool. I number these, and that's important later. But for right now, we just have to eyeball it and see which ones we're using. I think this might be this one, but let's just double check. Yeah. That's it, number 13. So we'll go to Tremble, add 13, and then Worthy, similar. Is that 15? I think it is. Yep, 15. Hold on though, I still have Tremble selected. There we go. Put that on Worthy. And then Grateful looks like this one, I think. Yeah. Still have Worthy selected. Grateful. Cool. Yeah, all right. So that now is the backgrounds are updated, which is wonderful. The next step is going to be adding MIDI notes for the lighting cue list, which I haven't actually made yet, but I can deduce what the cue number will be for which element of the service, and then I'll build the cue list in Vista later. So what that means is I'm going to check and make sure all these MIDI notes are correct. That most of these documents will already have MIDI notes on the first slide that are going to control, or at least be sent to Vista, and I have to make sure that they're sending the message I want them to send. Often the songs will be in a different order than they were in the last service that they appeared in, and I'll have some minor adjustments to make here. So I'll show you what I mean now. So this one is the first slide, and this should be, this first element is the pre-service loop. This should be 5 MIDI note on channel 5, MIDI note 0, and intensity 1. And so that's the first cue in my cue list. Is going to be black on the front of the stage, no white lights lighting the front of the stage, just color on the back wall, which is what we want for the pre-service look. That should be the same for the countdown video. 5, 0, 1, perfect. And then cue number 2, I'm going to have be song 1. So I'll have to check this. Yep, looks good. 5, 0, 2. And then the next thing that I have is going to be the welcome. So that'll be cue number 3, and I'll check and make sure this is 503. That's great. And you might notice there's 2 MIDI notes on some of these. The second one is an OBS MIDI note. That means it's going out on channel 4, and it's sending a different message into OBS to say, or to give it commands about what scene to pull up in OBS. It has nothing to do with lights. So yeah, you have to find usually the first one, the one on the left, or the one on top here, is going to be for lighting. So we'll check that, make sure it's going to 5, and this is the 4th cue. So that's, oh, you know what? Actually, no, because we're going to have baptisms. What I'll do for baptisms is I will add a slide in here. It's going to be for baptisms, and I can do that right now. So I'll copy and paste this slide, and I'll remove this cue, which was our OBS cue, and I'll edit this cue to be our 4th cue in the cue list. So this was cue number 3 in the cue list in Vista. This is going to be cue number 4, so it needs to be MIDI note 504. And here, now this will be the 5th cue in the cue list. I'm going to make this 5, 5, and then we'll do 5, 6. Perfect. And then the interactive level of light is going to be 5, 7. And then the actual sermon background is going to be 5, 8. All right, good. These are all, we're getting lucky here. So this should be 5, 9, and I doubt it will be. Nope. Perfect. So we need to change this to 5, 9. The next thing is going to be celebrations, and we're going to do 5, 10. Now this part's tricky because this first MIDI note is actually cueing something in QLab. Well, actually, we don't have any changes to make, but I can explain what's happening. So what I want to have happen at the end of the service is Ableton is going to, or the drummer is going to press a button on his MIDI controller, and that's going to send a MIDI note into to ProPresenter to hit this slide, which then this slide is going to play MIDI note 15, channel 15, 0, and 0 for the intensity. And that's going to go into QLab, which is going to hit this cue, triggered by channel 15, note 0, velocity 0. And that's going to play Q1 from cue list 1 in Vista. So all that to say, it's a very, very roundabout way of just going back to the beginning of the cue list in Vista. So yeah, so that is the process of adding the lighting, the MIDI notes for the lighting commands that we need to come out of ProPresenter into Vista. The next thing I can talk through briefly is the OBS commands. This isn't going to be like a thorough training, but it'll fill in some gaps probably for understanding with how we control OBS using MIDI notes. I have this cheat sheet here, which is a Google sheet that I created and made a few tabs here, a bunch of different things. Just kind of plotting and mapping how we've used MIDI notes in our auditorium. The first, or I guess the second one, I think. I don't know. I got lost over here. Okay, yeah. So this is the first one that's going to open up. But the second, I've got this sheet here, OBS channel 4, and this is this top section is just kind of plotting out what does what, and down here are some steps and instructions, just rough instructions to tell you what to do when you're making a service using this information. So scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10 are channel 4, note 0, intensity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Very similar to how we've structured our language for cueing the lights. We don't change the MIDI note, we don't change the channel's always going to be 4, we just change the intensity number, and that references cue numbers in the cue list and in the lighting software. This, instead of using channel 5, which we're using for the lights, we're using channel 4 for OBS. So that's where we saw when there's 2 MIDI notes on here, like right here, this slide, the top one's going to be channel 5 for the lighting command. The bottom one likely will be channel 4, and this is going to send, we know that's going to then go into OBS and reference scene number 2, because this is an intensity of 2. Note 0, intensity 2 is going to be scene 2. So anyway, now these instructions will help me know how to use that information when I'm creating my service. So the first instruction is add scene 1 cue to the countdown video slide. So at the countdown, when that happens in the service, we want OBS to change to scene 1, which I believe is no audio because of copyright reasons, and it's going to have a full screen view of this, which is being projected on screen in the auditorium. We want this same image to fill up the phone that you're watching on Facebook. So that's what scene 1 does. And we're going to check and make sure this is the lighting command. So this is the OBS command, channel 4, note 0, intensity of 1. Perfect. So that's going to reference scene 1. And then the second instruction is add scene 2 cue to the first slide of each song. Move this over a little bit so I don't have to jump back and forth. So the first slide of the first song is the only one to sing. We're going to check and make sure this is our lighting cue. So then our OBS cue is 402 for scene 2. That's perfect. The next instruction is add scene 2 cue to the first slide of each chorus. And the reason we do that is because OBS, we're sending it these lyrics, and sometimes the process of sending them those lyrics over gets frozen, and we need to kind of reset it. And resending the scene 2 command resets what got frozen and just kind of unstucks it. If that makes sense. So we don't need to send it every single slide with the scene 2 command, but every chorus, every so often in the song to resend that scene 2 command is good. So we can go to the chorus. It looks like this already has it, 402. That's perfect. And because we're using arrangements, I don't have to find every single chorus and add it again. Every time the chorus appears, it's the same chorus. It's the same slide, so it's got the command on there still. The next instruction is add scene 3 to the last slide of every song. So then this is the last slide of the song. This should be 403. Perfect. And then the next instruction, add scene 3 cue to the first slide of welcome, sermon, celebrations, anything that's not a song. So this welcome looks like it's already got it. This is the lighting command. This is the OBS command, 403. Perfect. And we've got a few more songs here, so I'll just check these real fast. This already has it. This has it. Yep, these choruses have it. The last slide has 403, perfect. Next song, got it, got it, got it. Cool, so then the sermon is the next thing in the service. And we'll just check this while we're here. 403, yep. Cool, and then these instructions we can't do yet because, again, we're waiting on the actual slides for the sermon. Scene 4 and Scene 5 commands are going to be specific to the actual sermon slides. Everything else I can do with placeholders and it works, but these are for the main bullet point slides of the sermon. These are for the scripture slides of the sermon, which I don't have yet. But when I do get them, what I'm going to do is add Scene 4, so that'd be Channel 4, Note 0, Intensity 4, MIDI command to the bullet point items of the sermon. And what that does in OBS is change the look so that you've got the camera view, but then a picture-in-picture of what's on screen. So the top left corner of your streaming screen, if you're watching on Facebook, you'd see Mark on stage preaching, and then in the top left corner of your screen you would see a shrunk down version of the slide that's being displayed. And we do that because the bullet point slides, the text isn't probably small enough that would be hard to read. The text is large enough that you can read it still, even though it's kind of a shrunk down top left corner view of the screen. Scene 5 is for scripture slides, and the text is small enough that you want the entire screen to become that scripture slide. So that's what that does. And then Scene 6 as well. So 4, 5, and 6 are all things I'd have to wait for, but if we've got a video during the sermon, Scene 6 is going to switch so that you can, it's another scene that's going to do similar to Scene 5, where the entire screen that you're streaming on is going to be filled up with what's on screen in the auditorium, so you can watch the video with the live stream. Cool, so we're going to skip those for right now. We'll finish up the song here. This already has, I'll just double check, but it should be 402. Yep, and these are 402 for the choruses, and then 403 for the last slide. Yep, and then this is the first slide of celebration, so this should be 403. Perfect. And then the end of service, Ableton queued end of service, is going to be 4010, and that just resets OBS for the next service. So that's it. That is the process of creating the majority of the process for creating the service in ProPresenter. The only things that I'm missing once I get the sermon document and the celebrations document, I'm going to add those in. I'm going to move these MIDI notes over to, probably what I'll do is I'll copy this slide and put it in the actual celebrations document that I get. And I'll copy these slides, this one and this one, and put those into the sermon document that I get. But I've done all the work that I can until I get those documents, and this is it. Thanks for watching.